I want to introduce Sam Buckley. Most everybody here is familiar with Sam. Sam has been part of the Historical Society since, since the last couple of years for sure. But besides being a workhorse and inventorying and researching and anything else you can think of that's proper in a museum, he has a particular love for Thomas Lomax Hunter. He's going to explain to you how that came to be, and he has a special presentation for you on Thomas Lomax Hunter. Take it away, Sam.
So is this working? Can you hear me?
So my interest in Thomas Lomax Hunter started late 2024. I was sitting in the museum one day, and I didn't have anything to do, and I read the little book that we have on Old King George, the poem. And once I was done with that, I read his Poems of Thomas Lomax Hunter book. And then I read through our file on Thomas Lomax Hunter, and I thought, wonder if there's anything else on him online. And really all that was on there online was 2 or 3 websites that had a paragraph or 2 about him, and then nothing else. No Wikipedia page, nothing. And I thought, rather stupidly, I can do that. A year later, I'm still no close to being done on newspaper.com. I'm on 1943 right now. But I did write the Wikipedia article.
Woohoo!
So let's get started.
Thomas Lomax Hunter, III, his grandfather. The Rappahannock Rhapsodist, sage or bard of King George, depends on what you're reading, and the Cavalier. Poet, lawyer, legislator, journalist, born March 6, 1875. At Belgrove Plantation. His parents were Frederick Campbell Stewart Hunter Sr. and Susan Rose Turner. Now, Frederick Campbell Stewart Hunter Sr., there is a portrait of him somewhere that belonged to King George. I don't know where it is right now. Gloria probably has a hardcover photo of it, though. His paternal grandparents were Dr. Thomas Lomax Hunter and Maria Tennant. Did I pronounce that right? Turner family. His maternal grandparents were Carolinus Turner and Susan Rose. The Turner family is considered one of the original King George families. Carolinus' great-great-grandfather, Thomas Turner, was born in 1689 in Hanover Parish. And Thomas Turner, there's a portrait of him in the courthouse, needs to be repaired because of damage, but Port Royal also has a portrait of him. Thomas Turner. Thomas Turner first appears in the records on February 14, 1725, when he purchased 200 acres in Hanover Parish. Oh, and if you have any questions, just ask them at the end of each slide. I forgot to mention that, sorry. He would continue to purchase parcels, and by 1753, he had amassed 2,300 acres, which he named Walsingham. This plantation is next door to Belgrove Plantation. Thomas Turner married twice in his lifetime. Both of his wives, Martha and Sarah, were the daughters of Richard Taliaferro, who lived in Caroline County at Taliaferro Mount. Carolinus Turner purchased Belgrove Plantation on December 27, 1839. Early life, and this is getting into Thomas Lomax Hunter. After the death of his father, Frederick Campbell Stewart Hunter Sr., his mother, Susan Rose Turner, in 1888, moved the family to Fredericksburg and would later sell Belgrove. Hunter would not return to King George till around 1903. War service. World War I, Hunter served as the food administrator for King George County, and during World War II, he was named as part of the Commodities and Rationing Board for King George County. Pre-legal career. He attended Georgetown University Law School for a year from 1899 to 1900. Hunter served as deputy clerk under Edward Lloyd Hunter, his uncle, from around 1903 to 1909. And I think this is kind of funny. Deputy clerk. Due to the lack of documentation of King George County deputy clerks, the only supporting documentation that Thomas Lomax Hunter was a deputy clerk are 3 newspaper articles from June 1908. And these are the 3 articles. Minister attacks clerk. They document an incident which occurred on June 4th, 1908 at the King George County Courthouse, the one prior to the old one. According to two of the articles, Thomas Lomax Hunter arranged for a meeting with Reverend Bird Thornton Turner, the Episcopal minister of King George County. The meeting was to discuss, quote, some injurious reports circulated by Mr. Turner about him, Hunter, and his family, end quote. The meeting turned into a fight where Reverend Turner attempted to attack Hunter, but was restrained by his son-in-law, W.A. Rose, the Commonwealth Attorney of King George County. Legal career. Hunter passed the written bar exam in November 1908. On August 26, 1910, he opened a law office in Colonial Beach, Virginia, with George Augle Taylor. As a lawyer, he served clients mostly in King George, Stafford, Westmoreland, and Bridgeport. He also had a law office in King George and Richmond, but I wasn't really able to find that much documentation on it. And that leads us to the Eastlake murder. On the morning of September 30th, 1921, Miss Margaret Eastlake was found murdered. Her body was discovered by Miss Sarah E. Knox. Miss Eastlake's husband, Roger D. Eastlake, had left for work at Dahlgren before then. The police would discover that Miss Knox and Mr. Eastlake had been having an affair for several years and would be arrested for the crime and were jailed at Montrose. A mob of Colonial Beach men formed and marched on the jail in Montrose, threatening to lynch Eastlake and Knox, but were persuaded otherwise. Eastlake and Knox would be moved at night to Fredericksburg, then Richmond, for their safety. Eastlake's sister would hire Thomas Lomax Hunter to defend her brother on the 3rd of October 1921. And that's Knox. That's Roger Eastlake. That is Margaret Eastlake, and those are the lawyers for the Knox case. Hunter would later be hired by the people of Colonial Beach for the prosecution. He would assist W.T. Mayo and Charles W. Moss in this. Eastlake and Knox would be tried separately. Eastlake first, then Knox. Mr. Eastlake's trial began on December 13, 1921, and would be acquitted of his wife's murder after 30 minutes of deliberation by the jury on December 21st, 1921. Miss Knox's trial began on April 25th, 1922, and we found guilty of the murder of Margaret Eastlake after an hour and 35 minutes of deliberation by the jury on May 4th, 1922, and received a sentence of 20 years. She would serve 12 at the Virginia State Penitentiary. Now, the reason I brought this up was this, to me, seemed the biggest legal case that Hunter was ever involved with. He mostly did minor cases. Now, I forgot to mention this. I'm sorry. If you are interested in learning more about his beliefs and views as a person, Thomas Lomax Hunter, please, you can look at the Virginia Cavalcade article for September 1995.
Are you using your Palm Pilot?
I wrote down the year so I wouldn't forget it. I had trouble. Yeah. There's also a little book about this, just of newspaper clippings of the Eastlake murder trial, if you're interested in learning more about it. It's at the King George Museum. Delegate of Virginia. Hunter announced his candidacy for the House of Delegates for King George and Stafford counties on October 4th, 1917. He ran as a Democrat and won against Republican M.K. Lowry. During his term in office, he would vote in favor of the Susan B. Anthony Amendment, and he supported the women's suffrage movement and voted for the legislation. On September 6, 1919, he declined to run for re-election, but with the unanimous nomination from the Democrat Party in King George and Stafford, and upon beating M.K. Lowry again, he was re-elected to the House of Delegates. Now, you see this? This card was made for when the Susan B. Anthony Amendment was being voted on, and the suffragettes made the cards of every delegate in order to pass out to the other suffragettes in order to say who supports us, who is against us, and who's on the fence. Early literary career. Hunter's literary career began with him contributing poems to various magazines such as Lippincott's, St. Nicholas, the Saturday Evening Post, and 8 more, for a total of 57 poems ranging from October 1905 to July 1926. He had a column in the Richmond Times-Dispatch. I forgot to mention this. And I printed out a list of all the poems, all of his poems that I could find in magazines. I got the list from Internet Archive and Happy Trust. Legs, So, you want me to pass this out, or?
Okay. I think we need to show them the book.
That's not Ballad of Forbidden Fruits.
Huh?
That's poems of Thomas Lomax Turner. That's not the Forbidden Fruit book.
Oh, I know.
So he had a column in the Richmond Times-Dispatch called the Rappahannock Rhapsodist, which ran from February 1st, 1914 to April 18th, 1914. It featured many poems which hadn't been shown in any PR articles. It was later fully compiled along with many other of his earlier poems in Forbidden Fruits and Other Ballads in 1923. Now, there is a copy of that at the museum. And I forgot to pass out this poem. And this poem is actually, a couple of the poems that were in the magazines were illustrated, but this was the most intricate one. Open forum. The open forum, you could send letters to the newspaper with certain restrictions, usually word count, and the newspaper in question would publish it. Hunter would go on to publish numerous open forum letters to the Richmond Times-Dispatch, the Baltimore Sun, and the Evening Sun. These letters would gain the attention of the Freelance Star, and subsequently they would hire him to write a weekly column. Freelance Star column. His next column was run in the Freelance Star from October 5th, 1927 to February 25th, 1929, under two different names. Originally called The Wastebasket, that name ran from October 5th, 1927 to December 2nd, 1927, and then The Lightship, named after one of his poems, December 5th, 1927 to February 25th, 1929. The column ran every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on page 4. Now, that is the first heading for the Freelance Star column. That was a cartoon he had made for the Wastebasket column. That's the first one for Lightship. And that was the cartoon that was made for the rest of it. I think that the Wastebasket one is better than the Lightship. And this is comparing the two different columns. Both the Lightship and the Cavalier's format were nearly identical, with the minor difference being that the Lightship had a disclaimer in its heading that the views and opinions expressed from time to time in this column are personal to the writer and are not necessarily those of this newspaper. The columns were used to express Hunter's opinions on the politics of the time, personal musings, poetry, and to answer letters to him from readers of his column. The main difference in the columns was the fact the Lightship column usually had titles for its articles, whereas the Cavalier did not. Now this, The President's Camp on the Rappahannock, published by the State Commission on Conservation and Development in July 1931, Hunter was paid $100, $2,365 in today's money, to write the booklet. It gives a description and history of Rappahannock Camp and the local area, which was a summer vacation home for President Herbert Hoover and his family. It's in the Shenandoah Valley. And I printed out I had scanned a copy at the Library of Virginia and made into a little book for the museum. It also has newspaper clippings.
To our you.
Oh, I thought it was okay. Show it to
A bit closer.
As it appears to the Cavalier. His final newspaper column was called, what I just said, As It Appears to the Cavalier, which ran in the Richmond Times-Dispatch. It ran daily for a total of 19 years, February 26, 1929 to June 11, 1948, a few weeks before his death. It ran mostly without interruptions, with a few exceptions. Severe illness, vacation, and a 2-month leave in 1936, September and October. And I'll get to that interruption in a minute. Columns from the Cavalier. Published December 1935, made of hand-picked excerpts from the Cavalier column. It follows a theme of country life. And now we're getting into the interruption. An anti-Jeffersonian Democrat, an anti-New Deal party which attempted to get Alf Landon elected president. Hunter would take a leave of absence from the Cavalier column to be their publicity director. Alf Landon only won 7 of Virginia's 95 counties, only winning percentage-wise 29.39% of Virginia voters. Afterwards, Hunter would return to the Richmond Times-Dispatch to continue writing the Cavalier until June 11, 1948. And these are miscellaneous facts I couldn't really figure out where to put. In 1898, he wrote a poem called Old King George, a saga of the happy horse and buggy days, and that is in that. In 1936, Hunter wrote about the history of his home, King George County, and this was brought up at one of the past meetings with Dr. Gates, where he talked about the history of the Potomac River Bridge. Hunter was part of the 1932 Potomac River Bridge Commission, one of the past commissions before the 1945 the bridge was built? One of the past commissions before the one that actually got the bridge built. Now, poems of Thomas Lomax Hunter. Oh, I forgot to mention. I'm sorry. This is Hunter's Freelance Star column book. This is every single article. They're scans taken directly from newspaper.com, so some of them are not going to be readable. But if you're ever interested in reading it, it's going to be at the King George Museum. All right, now back to that. Sorry. Poems of Thomas Lomax Hunter. A compilation of all of Thomas Lomax Hunter's poems, including Forbidden Fruits and other ballads, and poems featured in his column, Lightship and Cavalier. Made in 1947, a year before his death. It features 126 of Hunter's poems. And this is my own personal copy, just to show you.
My thing is ready, but I'll put it after.
Poet Laureate of Virginia. In March 1948, Hunter was made Poet Laureate of Virginia for the year of 1948, as part of a compromise with Lee Buckner Haynes that the latter would be made the Poet Laureate for 1949. Now, I didn't include this in the slide, but I just wanted to mention it. His only official visit as Poet Laureate for Virginia was scheduled for the opening of the Westmoreland County Museum, the one that has a little garden next to it. It would never make it there. Death. Thomas Lomax Hunter III died of heart failure at Mary Washington Hospital on June 19, 1948. His funeral was held at Waverly, and he was buried at St. John's Episcopal Church. And that's a little poem that someone sent to the Voice of the People after he died. And I sort of didn't want to leave it there, so these are Fred O. Siebel cartoons that I found on newspaper.com that feature Thomas Lomax Hunter. That one is, there was a dinner that was held for the Voice of the People that sent the letters in, and that was a cartoon made before the dinner, and this cartoon was made after the dinner. This cartoon right here, the one of him rowing across the Potomac to Maryland, that is because I can't remember reading the article that inspired that little poem, this little cartoon, I mean. But essentially what it meant is Maryland's prohibition enforcement was a lot more lax everywhere than anywhere else. So it essentially said, I would row across the Potomac to get beer. And this is a cartoon that was made when Virginia was about to legalize liquor. And as you can see, you can't really make it out, but that's Thomas Lomax Hunter coming back from Maryland. And this one was made in response to an article. He said that World War II wouldn't really reach the northern neck, essentially. I haven't really read any of the articles he wrote for the Cavalier because I was trying to hurry up and finish clipping it in time for, well, this presentation, but I didn't finish. And you...
Go ahead and do this one. You go ahead and do this one.
Family. Hunter married Mary Reed Doherty on December 3rd, 1910, at Mary's home, Waverly, located directly across from the old middle school, which got bulldozed, in King George County. Their weddings was officiated by Reverend R.G. James of the Methodist Church of King George County. Mary Reed Doherty was the only daughter of Mrs. Nancy B. Doherty and Mr. William J. Doherty. She was also the granddaughter of William S. Brown, the longest-serving clerk of King George County from September 4th, 1845 to 1887. He saved numerous county records during the American Civil War by hiding them in Waverly's attic when Union troops came through King George County. One of these records he saved was a will of Augustine Washington, currently held by King George County. And that is what he looked like. That is taken from his obituary, but the county does have a portrait of him. But it's currently in the side room in the courthouse because it needs to be repaired. And this is a photo of his family taken from that Virginia Cavalcade article. Thomas Lomax Hunter III and Mary Reed Doherty had 4 issues. Thomas Lomax Hunter IV married Elizabeth Alexander Edmondson. Anna Campbell Stewart married Robert Lothridge Adams. William James Doherty Hunter married Joan Beatrice Churchill. And Rosemary Turner Hunter married James Coates Lear.
All right, what is it? Same. You want to continue?
Yeah.
Hold on a minute. Hold on.
Yeah.
One of the things that was funny with this, or ironic, is when I was doing my genealogy, I found out I was related to Robin Williams. And then as I'm talking with some of the Hunter family, and I didn't know this, how many of you have seen the movie Patch Adams? Hunter Patch Adams is that Patch Adams. So there's a tie with both Robin Williams and Patch. Go ahead.
Thomas Lomax Hunter. Anna Campbell Stewart married Robert Lothridge Adams. Issues: Robert L. Adams, Hunter Doherty, Patch Adams. William James Doherty Hunter married Joan Beatrice Churchill. Issues: James D. Hunter, Joan Churchill Hunter, and Randolph Churchill Hunter. Rosemary Turner Hunter married Alfred James Coates Lear. Issues: Alan Lawrence Lear, Sandra Hunter Lear. Thomas Lomax Hunter IV married Elizabeth Alexander Edmondson. Issues: Thomas Lomax Hunter V. I knew there was a fifth one. Frank Edmondson Hunter, Elizabeth Alexander Hunter. And that's it.
No, it's not.
All right. No, it's not it.
Oh, man.
Question for you. The Ms. Tennant was the great grandmother, I believe. Where was she from? From South Carolina? Where did the Tennants come from?
I do not know. Any questions you have to pertain to Thomas Lomax Hunter. I didn't really do that much research into the family. Sorry. You might know though.
Sam, with the second daughter, her last name was Stewart, not Hunter, before she got married?
Yeah, I believe so.
When you were reading the stuff on Waverly about our clerk during the Civil War hiding the records, were you reading his daughter's account? And if you were, did you get to the funny story she was talking about their donkey that kept getting stolen by Union troops? It had been stolen like a grand total of 7 times, but it was so hungry it kept getting out and making it back to the farm.
No, I
Do
did
you remember
not.
reading that?
Because that's in our records too.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, it's from the clerk's daughter's perspective. After she was older and was telling stories of her recollections of the Civil War when she was like, I think she was somewhere between 8 and 12 years old.
Yeah, I haven't heard that. I do know the University of Virginia, they actually do have William S. Brown's diary.
Okay.
So next time I go up there, I'm going to look at that. Any more questions? Okay.
So what got us really started with this is I received a phone call. Let's take that microphone over to the speaker. Received a phone call one day. I was at the museum, and this young lady called me and introduced herself, Miss Elizabeth Betsy Hunter, and said that she wanted to donate something to the museum, wanted to know who to talk to. So I said, you can talk to me. Which found out later that I was talking to my cousin. I know who I'm not related to. And so we picked up the item. I've been holding on to it until we could do the presentation. Betsy was going to be here. She's not feeling well, but she is with us on Zoom. Hey, Betsy.
Hello.
So Sam and I are going to, I'll just set it right there. Sam and I are going to grab it. Betsy, you want to tell the crowd, introduce yourself and talk to them?
Hello, folks. I am the granddaughter of Thomas Lomax Hunter III. And this portrait that you're about to see has been in my family since I can remember, probably even before I was born, because Thomas Lomax Hunter III died five or so years before I was born. But it's been hanging in our family's home, my mother's and father's home. And then when they passed, I wound up with it. And as I've gotten older and the Hunter family is sort of running out of people to pass it down to, I decided that the Historical Society of King George County would be a good place to park it, so that it would represent some of the history of King George County. I guess that's about it.
Well, we certainly do appreciate it, Betsy, and thank you so much. Wish you were here. One, I want to thank Betsy, and I want to thank for Sam doing such an excellent job talking about Thomas Lomax Hunter III.